All right, lesson 347. Thank you, Jackie. I need to be double checked every day. It says, anger must come from judgment. Judgment is the weapon I would use against myself to keep the miracle away from me. Father, I want what goes against my will, and do not want what is my will to have. Straighten my mind, my Father. It is sick, but you have offered freedom, and I choose to claim your gift today. And so I give all judgment to the one you gave me to judge for me. He sees what I behold, and yet he knows the truth. He looks on pain, and yet he understands it is not real. And in his understanding, it is healed. It's so powerful. He gives the miracles my dreams would hide from my awareness. Let him judge today. I do not know my will, but he is sure it is your own. And he will speak for me and call your miracles to come to me. Listen today, be very still, and hear the gentle voice for God assuring you that he has judged you as the son he loves. So wow, this is just one of those lessons you read. At least when I read it, I sort of see so many keys to the kingdom this lesson's giving us. Like, wow, this lesson really is spelling out all the secrets of the sage, to find that amazing, immaculate peace in the present moment that's independent from circumstance. And what it's really pointing to is how our judgments, right? Our judgments about what is, about the present moment, hide from us the miracles, the love, the beauty that's all around us. And I want to speak to a more subtle layer of judgment today because, we've spent this year just really driving home the obvious judgments of seeing others as separate from us and victimized and all these things. And, those ones are pretty easy to catch. But as we move through our own awakening, we've always talked about this year, there's just layers after layers after layers that become increasingly subtle. And that's what requires awareness to become increasingly sharp, right? And poignant to be able to see these layers of subtlety. And there's a layer of subtlety to our judgments that we start to come into after we've gone through some of the surface layers of our judgments towards others in the world as being evil or bad. We start to notice increasingly difficult ways to become aware that we are actually still judging this moment. And this is why I sort of have, I don't know, maybe three kind of take-home points to this lesson. And the first one is that to get to the bottom layer of our judgments requires something in specific, a level of purity in us, a level of crystallization in us that will take us through all those layers of judgments all at once to the very bottom. And that is loving truth for the sake of truth itself. Not because I get to be right or I get to be free or whatever, right? Not that those are bad reasons to love truth, but loving truth because it's true, right? Because it's reality and I want to be in reality. Loving truth for the sake of truth will sort of take me to the bottom layer the quickest, so I can start to become aware of all the ways I'm still holding untruth in my mind, right? Falsity, judgment in my mind. And the second point is that this is what we call the don't know mind, right? Understanding I don't know anything because truth is so transcendent, so beyond whatever the mind, the intellect can possibly know, that the more we become aware of that, the more we experience truth in its sort of radical, all-encompassing nature, we start to go like, man, truth is something so epic, so magnificent, like I can't possibly know it with my mind. And so we start to live with this childlike innocence where our default mode is always like, well, I can't know for sure. I can't know what this moment is, what's happening in this moment. I can't know what the divine power is working behind the scenes, behind the curtains of this moment. I can only be with what is and just trust and surrender and let life in its magnificent intelligence just do everything for me. Like the mind is a finite medium, right? And a finite mind just can't ever know the infinite. It's impossible. So we just live with that childlike innocence, that don't know mind, and that is the enlightened mind. Like, I can't stress that enough. That is liberation, is knowing that you don't know. You know, it just sounds so counterintuitive to the mind. Isn't the whole point of enlightenment to know, to understand? And you know, you might say yes, in a sense, but it's a level of understanding that's far beyond the intellect. It's an understanding with the heart, right? And so our judgments really divide us within ourselves. They create that split the Course talks about, a split mind. And we can't see the beauty, the perfection, the magnificence of the present moment when we're divided within ourselves, right? So the third point is to see the kingdom of heaven, we have to be undivided, or we have to become one within ourselves, which is just really to surrender all judgments. It's just the judgments that give us this illusion of being split, when in fact what we are is completely whole on the inside. So there is a bliss and a joy and a serenity, a peace, a stillness, as this lesson talks about, that's always available in the present moment, no matter what we're doing, no matter how ordinary the moment seems. That peace and bliss and beauty is always there. And we're just the ones who can't see it, right? It's hidden from us when we judge reality. So that's why I wanted to talk about some of these more subtle layers of judgments that we may not realize yet that we've been actually applying to the present moment. And I can speak from my own experience that one of the most subtle layers of judgment that took me a long time to begin noticing that I was doing was, how do I say this? Always overlooking the ordinariness of the present moment for the sake of wanting a transcendent experience, a peak experience, a mystical moment. You know, like we have these mystical moments, these transcendent experiences, and it becomes like a drug high, you know, the mind gets addicted to. And we're chasing these epic oneness experiences, right? And once we have some of these epic oneness experiences, it becomes all the mind wants, because it feels like that moment enhanced me, right? Now I have a story. I can tell people a special story about a mystical experience I had that people go, wow, you must be so spiritual to have had that moment. And the mind gets attached, right? And so when that happens, the mind naturally starts applying this default mode judgment that this present moment, because it isn't a peak experience, it's less valid, right? It's less divine. It's less beautiful, it's less whatever. And we just sort of carry that subtle frequency of this moment is not as good as a peak experience. And man, do we miss out on the kingdom of heaven when we do that. Because really what happens is, as we begin to melt our judgments away, we stop categorizing any moment as being more divine or more spiritual than any other moment. And we begin to recognize that that's a judgment. And I cannot know if that's true. See, don't know mind. It begins to rescue you from those subtle judgments. And when that happens, we move into the second layer, you might say, or the second phase, I'd rather use that word. The second phase of our awakening journey is once we're no longer, no part of us is chasing a peak experience, you know, a Christ vision where everything opens up and whoa, I'm one with everything. That's fantastic when it happens, but that happens by a natural result of just whatever grace is doing in me, right? There's no person who makes a mystical moment happen, who does it, right? It happens as a product of grace, as we talked about yesterday. So when we lay down that need to have a mystical moment, we say, no, this moment actually, just in its ordinariness or its seeming ordinariness, is perfectly adequate, perfectly sufficient, perfectly divine. I don't want to change anything about it. And we start accepting this moment, no matter what arises in it, as radically perfect. When we do that, the ordinary moments start becoming extraordinary in very simple ways. You know, sitting in the morning, drinking coffee, will become a full expression of ultimate reality. Like you're just here and something about this moment shines with perfection, and you see the divine in a simple sip of coffee. And walking down the hallway, driving in your car, going to work, writing an email, your awareness starts to tune in or plug in to that transcendent reality that's always here. We call it the kingdom of heaven. When we lose our ability to judge this moment in any way, each moment becomes beautiful and divine in its own right. And then we no longer have to chase peak experiences and mystical moments, because without judgments in our mind, we begin to recognize the divine essence is equally present in every moment in time, right? No matter where you are, it's always there. It's always available. And you think, wow, how silly was I to be overlooking the perfection of this moment and every moment for a peak, mountaintop experience, which again are great when they happen and they can do beautiful things in us, but we can't rely on them. We can't be dependent on them. We can't get addicted to them, which is very easy to do, right? And I certainly did that for so long. In fact, I was taking psychedelics just to have those moments, because when I would be in that state that, magic mushrooms or even cannabis can put you in these crazy altered states. Wow, this is the divine. This is it. This is really it, right? Says the mind, only because it's been overlooking the ordinary moments. And after, the same year I had my sort of 2-week enlightenment experience, I started taking magic mushrooms like twice a month. I'd go up to the mountains and do a big trip just to experience God and the allness of everything. And I was like, that's what I want. But I started to realize what's happening on psychedelics is simply that my judgments about reality are dropping so radically and so powerfully that I get to have access to these higher states of reality, you might say. So then I was like, maybe the answer is not to acquire some magical epic state of consciousness, but to let go of judgments about what is, to let go of my criticism, my not enoughness, right? The division in myself. And if I can get rid of that, maybe I can have a piece of this psychedelic state, we call it, all the time. Maybe I can see reality more like this all the time. And that became my pursuit, was to get rid of my overlays, right? And slowly as that began to happen, and still is happening, of course, I started to realize, yes, that is true. I don't need to add anything to the moment. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not less valid, less beautiful than anything else. I'm just judging it, right? I've just been judging it. Like, you're always in the kingdom of heaven. Nirvana is always present when you can be with each moment without those judgments, and knowing that you can't know what this moment is, right? I can't know what the divine is doing. I can't know where this moment's taking me. I can just merge with the moment. I can just be with what is without judgment. And so in that sense, enlightenment, we see it as an altered state of consciousness, right? Like on a psychedelic drug, you're like, this is enlightenment, and you're in this extremely altered state, right? Well, in a very real sense, enlightenment is the only unaltered state of consciousness, isn't it? We always seek those peak experiences because we're seeking an altered state, because that's it. That's the kingdom of heaven. And kingdom of heaven's an unaltered state of consciousness. We only seek it because we're judging the ordinary flow of life as being not special, not great, not that divine, not that exciting. So we chase a peak. But I love how this lesson says, he gives the miracles my dreams would hide from my awareness. That's it. Our judgments hide us from the miracle of the present moment, don't they? And that's what this lesson is really pointing to, I think, that judgment is a weapon I use against myself to keep the miracle away from me. So, wow, see how crafty the ego is. We got to give it props, guys. Round of applause for the ego. In that chasing of a peak spiritual experience, which happens every so often, what does that imply is happening every other moment? Lack, right? Not enoughness, not divine enough. So because it gets you to accept that a peak experience is better than an ordinary one, then now you're overlaying a subtle judgment on every present moment. Not enough, lack. And so you miss out on those miracles that are happening second by second. You miss out on the beauty of the absolutely ordinary because you realize there is no ordinary in reality. That's a judgment, right? It's all the divine perfection expressing itself. Everything is an expression of the inexpressible, right? How beautiful is that? So when you see that that's available, that's what you want, right? You want to get rid of these judgments. You want to get rid of the division in yourself. And to a larger point, maybe even more importantly, when I get rid of the division in myself, I become a manifestation of unity on earth, right? Like when I get rid of the division in myself, my judgments of reality and life, I literally leave the state of consciousness that's plaguing this planet right now of judgment, not enoughness, lack. That's what everyone's thinking about reality. So it's like I heal reality of a little bit of the damage that our collective consciousness is doing to it. Hypothetically speaking, of course. I leave the insanity that's happening and I enter the kingdom of heaven. And as each one of us, becomes a shooting star that leaves that realm of judgment and enters the kingdom of heaven, we make the kingdom, the awareness of oneness, more available on earth. Like that's the greater gift of non-judgment, isn't it? So it's a gift I give myself and a gift I give everyone else at the same time. It's like just incredibly beautiful. So I just want to give us, a chance to find that within ourselves and really like supercharge this into our awareness today. Because again, these layers of judgment can be so subtle that, man, it takes us a long time to really pick up on how the mind is just always saying this moment isn't good enough, isn't good enough, isn't good enough. And we just miss the kingdom, right? That's always here. So once we see that, once we know that, Holy Spirit can begin illuminating that in our vision and takes care of the job for us. So let's close our eyes and turn inwards. And as we do each morning, we ask Holy Spirit to show us the actual moments, bring to our memory, maybe from yesterday, maybe from this morning, moments that I have been judging the present moment as not what I'm looking for. There's a future moment with more bliss or ecstasy than this one, and that's the moment in the future where I will find my fulfillment. And reality doesn't know that future moment that you imagine. It just knows what is. It knows the unfolding. It knows the nowness, the here-ness of this moment. And it's extending out its hand with the keys to the kingdom in them, holding them in front of you, saying, will you just take a hold of what is and be free? So visualize yourself right now, taking those keys from God's hand and placing that key in the center of your chest, in the heart chakra, unlocking that door and opening it to reality. Seeing that green ray energy we began with, shining forth from your heart, illuminating all that is with the awareness of perfect oneness. Every moment is shining with glory. Like God said to Moses at the burning bush, take the sandals off your feet, for the place you stand is holy ground. These sandals are judgments that we wear, a boundary of judgments we keep to protect us from really, truly merging with this moment. The ego wants to stay separate from this moment because to merge with it is the ego's dissolution. It can only talk about the moment. It cannot be in it. And so the escape from the ego is the entrance to the present moment. And all you must do is take the sandals off your feet. And there it is. So again, just invite Holy Spirit to show you, to illuminate into your awareness right now. What judgments have you been wearing about the present moment in your life? Where have you been saying that it's not good enough, not spiritual enough? And can you forgive that judgment? We forgive each judgment that comes into our awareness. We just see them as an innocent mistake, nothing to be guilty for. In fact, it's designed to be that way, that you can experience the unfolding of presence in yourself, the delicious unfolding that we get to experience each and every day. So as we lay these judgments down, we also at the same time acknowledge the perfection of what is, the perfection of God's reality. Let us not waste time trying to change it or judge it or even understand it with our mind. Let us get busy dissolving into it, merging with it, disappearing into it, being lived by it. That is our joy, that is our bliss. That is all we want. To be one with what is. Just feel that desire in your heart. That desire to be one with what is always will become the spearhead that breaks through the illusion, the division in your mind. It will show you the judgments. It will show you the illusion the mind creates. And then awareness will just forgive them automatically as they are seen and laid down. And so we thank you, Holy Spirit, for this shift in perception today. We thank you for the miracles that you bring into our awareness. And we ask for more. We invite more miracles. We invite more shifts in consciousness to bring us to the seeming ordinary with full presence and full awareness. That is our request, our prayer today. And if you resonate with that, just breathe it in one last time. And on the exhale, slowly bring your attention back. When you feel ready, you can open your eyes. Man, feeling that today, huh? Isn't it great? Isn't it liberating that we don't need to chase peak experiences? That we can just be so content and satisfied with what is. That can just be our joy and delight. I guess the coffee cup is my representation of what is today. Keep holding it out every time. This coffee is enlightenment. Oh man, that's funny. Awesome. Well, it seems like that landed for a lot of you guys. So that's amazing. That's awesome. Just gets better and better, doesn't it? Really good stuff today, guys. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Much love.